to the Done Deal Show with Dean Jones. Lots to talk about and digest today. We also want to take your questions, any transfers that you want updates on, you want to hear about. Get your messages in now while we're live to Dean Jones, and he'll let you know what he knows, or he'll go and search it later and put it on Twitter for you, whichever which way round works best for you. We're talking Chelsea, big done deal for them this morning, plus their pursuit of Olise, and could there be some more players coming in goal or up front for Chelsea over the course of this remaining window? We're looking at Man United and Liverpool as a set to battle it out for Gravenberch and potentially Amrabat as well. Doucoure to Liverpool transfer to touch on also. Plus, we'll be looking at Arsenal. Will they be coming in for somebody else in a defensive position with Jurriën Timber being out? And what of the Mohamed Kudus deal? Still hasn't agreed to move to Brighton or to West Ham, who seemingly are ahead. Talk of Arsenal still being interested. We'll be getting the latest from Dean on that. But before that, how are you, my friend? You good? You well?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, obviously I haven't been on the show for a while. I've been over in America on holiday in San Diego, so that was good. I was actually on a plane when all the madness kicked off last week, which from a professional point of view, I guess isn't ideal. But on a personal point of view, it probably saved me quite a lot of hassle and aggro and stress. So that wasn't the end of the world. I mean, you seem to have done well out of it and made the most of the moment. So that's good.
Mate, it honestly, from sort of Wednesday evening when Chelsea put a bid in for Lavia until the deals were pretty much announced, the here we goes came through for both. By the time both were done, sort of late Monday, early Tuesday, it was the craziest 4 or 5 days I've ever had in terms of covering transfers. I didn't know if I was coming or going. And it was, and you know me, I don't call out journalists, but it was sort of top journalists saying, you know, for Liverpool getting Caicedo, personal terms are, medicals in the morning, paperwork's being done, personal terms of formality, just for 3 or 4 hours later, the world to change. And that wasn't a dig on them. It was the behavior of the clubs. And it was honestly, because it wasn't my club involved, it was a beautiful thing to watch. I'm not going to lie. You know me, I love transfers, and I absolutely loved the way it all kind of went. And it feels like we're maybe gearing up for a bit more of this, because it's been reported in the last 24 hours that Manchester United are interested now and have inquired into Bayern Munich about Ryan Gravenberch. We know United have agreed personal terms, according to a lot of reports from Italy, with Amrabat. But it now appears that Liverpool, despite signing Endo last night, are also looking at both of those players and could also make a move. So maybe another battle here for 2 more top-class players involving Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from a Liverpool point of view, they need to kind of start winning a battle of their own. They've just been ambushed for Lavia. And now if they could hijack Man United's move for Amrabat, it would give them a little win of their own in this transfer window, and it would give them a big player coming through the door as well. I have to admit, I was quite skeptical at first of the Amrabat link. It just felt like a bit of an obvious one to throw out there on the back of them missing out on the players. But as soon as you start to look into it a bit more, there was something there. Like, Liverpool have definitely started to explore this. I think mostly to see, can Amrabat be persuaded to go anywhere else in the Premier League? He's had his heart's been set on going to Man United. His mind's been set on going to Man United. Like, the fee is all set up. The personal terms are all set up. Fiorentina are ready to sell him to Man United. They have been anyway, up to now, because suddenly it's just like, oh, we've hit a brick wall. Because Man United haven't been able to get the extra midfielder out of the door on top of Fred, we're at a standstill. Amrabat can't wait and wait and wait. Look, it's a tough one for him, but if Liverpool are suddenly knocking on the door, that does give him a big decision to make. And if I was Liverpool, I think I would be knocking on that door. It's not a lot of money, is it? Like, you think of what the Amrabat deal is being set up at. Like, this is a steal.
It's mid-20s, and this man is so good. And look, I'm a big fan of Caicedo, big fan of Lavia, big fan of Declan Rice. But those deals are 55 millions, 100 millions, 115 millions. Amrabat, in my opinion, he can stand shoulder to shoulder with those players and hold his own in midfield battles as a technical footballer with his stamina, his energy, and his experience. To pick him up a quarter of the price of Declan Rice for either Liverpool or Manchester United is an absolute brilliant piece of business. My fear, as you've said, is Man United have agreed these personal terms for ages. We've been waiting now for the deals to move on, and with Donny van der Beek stalling, with McTominay not moving forward. My hope is really that City sign Paqueta and then West Ham come in and say, look, boom, there's the money for McTominay. But I'm getting worried now because we're doing this, and I understand why we're doing it. We want to balance the books, but you also get to a point where you've just seen what's happened to Liverpool with Lavia. I just need to not be stupid here and not sort of miss out on a top-class midfielder that's going to improve us massively and allow him to go to our biggest and bitterest rivals. I'm genuinely fearful of that happening, Dean.
Yeah, look, I coming into the season, I did a season preview on our podcast, Ranks FC, last week, and I had like Liverpool, Man United coming into the season pretty much on a par. I was like, I feel like these two clubs can end up like potentially second, but at least third in the Premier League, and I feel that they should be fighting it out. And I think that a signing like this really goes a long way to dictating who has the upper hand in that battle. I think if Man United don't get Amrabat after all this and end up making a weird last-minute signing on deadline day that just doesn't fit like they've done various times in the past, it just doesn't hold up. And Liverpool now under pressure to actually go and do that. Obviously, they have made a signing or are on the verge of making a signing, Arturo Endo from Stuttgart. But that's not the one. Like that, I don't think that is the guy that Liverpool are pinning their hopes on here. All the noises are that they won't be finished in the midfield market. And that's interesting because obviously, like you look at Liverpool and the fact they lost Fabinho and Henderson, no one really talks about the fact they also lost James Milner. And I think that Endo perhaps goes to make up for that Milner-Henderson hybrid loss rather than the Fabinho loss. So I feel like Endo going in there as a player who has experience. I know a lot of people are slating him for like, well, how can, you can't sign a guy who's been in relegation battles in Germany to stick him into a team that should be challenging for the Premier League title. Well, my argument that would be, well, they were going to sign Lavia for 60 million, who was relegated. So at least this guy wasn't actually relegated. Like, I don't think that.
No, I agree. I always feel, I see a lot of people do this on Twitter where we shouldn't sign players that got relegated. And with Man United, they always use Maguire as the example, and he hasn't worked out. But Andy Robertson got relegated with Hull.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to say he's the best left back Liverpool have had in the Premier League era. Been one of the best left backs in the world during that time. There are gems still that get. There was a time in the Premier League, I don't know if he actually won the Golden Boot, but he was definitely one of the highest goal scorers, where Ravanelli was one of the highest goal scorers in the league, but Borough got relegated.
They did.
That didn't mean he weren't a good striker. So yeah, I don't always think, correlation and causation don't always add up to the same thing. And with Endo, look, I like to laugh at Liverpool. I'm a Man United fan, but I have a feeling they might have signed him anyway. I have a feeling that he might have been a player that they brought in after landing their marquee signing.
Yeah.
But just the order in which they've done this, it looks like a panic. And of course, there's a lot of banter. I've seen they sold Hendo and they bought Endo. They wanted Enzo and they got Endo. Someone actually did a funny one where they wanted Enzo and Caicedo. You put the names together and it's Endo. And there's a lot of banter in there. But I've got a feeling about this Endo guy. I think he actually might be a good signing, and people are going to look a little bit silly, kind of mocking Liverpool, especially if he's only 18 million euros. I think there's a player in there. Yeah. They're also looking at I always want to say Gravenberch, but Gravenberch as well. So are Man United, and of course Santi came out yesterday. Alfredo came out yesterday and said both are reactivating their interest. The player prefers Man United, but again, we're in a position where we maybe can't buy until we sell. Yeah. And Liverpool, again, if Liverpool end up with Gravenberch, Endo, and Amrabat, suddenly it's a phenomenal summer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, look, Gravenberch obviously has links to Ten Hag. I don't personally see that Gravenberch is exactly the right profile fit for what Man United need in the midfield now, but you could argue like anything is good for United's midfield right now. So I'll take that on board as well. But Liverpool have had the most interest throughout this particular transfer window. And I mean, coming into it, it was supposed to be one of the priorities. It was supposed to be like a June deal where they were like, right, let's clear up his situation at Bayern Munich. Is he in the plans there? If he is, then we'll move on from it. And if he's not, then let's get him through the door. Here we are, like back end of August, looking towards deadline day now, and he's still there and seems a little bit in limbo. So I think that Liverpool would have the upper hand in terms of like the scope they might have made already on the deal. But there's always that Ten Hag factor, mate. I think Ten Hag is extremely frustrated right now. A couple of conversations I've had with contacts in the last 2 days, this doesn't seem to me to be a manager that's particularly happy with the way that this transfer window is going. Like, June was a disaster. They made up for a lot of it in July. And now August, when you're putting like the icing on the cake, it's not there. Like, this was supposed to be a week when Maguire was gone, one of the midfielders was gone, and you were lining up 2 big signings to come in this week, a midfielder and probably Pavard. Neither of those things is happening. And now, on top of that, you've got the striker situation, which no one's really talking about at the moment because there's so much focus on the midfield and the defence. Ten Hag is not happy with the goal threat Man United hold right now. He's having to play Rashford at 9. He's not totally against playing Rashford at 9. In fact, Rashford's kind of convinced him he can play that role. But then he's left with a problem on the left because he tries Garnacho there. He was pretty much a dud in that Wolves game. He didn't turn up. I like Garnacho, but it wasn't a good day for him. So probably, I imagine, end up throwing Sancho onto the left side against Tottenham and playing Rashford through the middle again. Højlund, we still don't have a date of when he's going to become available. I think Ten Hag still wants a striker in this window, and that opens up another whole can of worms.
Yeah, I read that this morning as well, that he still wants that striker. And I can understand his frustration because I'm getting that way. 5 weeks ago, Mount was done. We all pretty much knew Onana was getting over the line. And then it was meant to, we had so many exits that felt like they were very close. And then we were meant to go and get Amrabat. Højlund was going to come in. And then the sort of idea was we'd make all those other sales, raise money, and then maybe buy somebody else. And look, Pavard is a big upgrade on what we already have if he comes in. We know how good Amrabat is as an example. Gravenberch, maybe there's some United fans are suggesting there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to the midfield performance against Wolves. I don't really think we need to have a knee-jerk reaction. We just need to look at the positionings of players when we're attacking. It's more of you can work on that. It was just people in the wrong spaces at the wrong times in this kind of adaptation of the system that we've got. But I understand his frustration because it's getting rid of these players. And the annoying thing for me is, as a United fan, I see a lot of his detractors online who are meant to be United fans blaming him, saying, well, the manager said that he wouldn't join United without control over transfers. Yes, he has control over saying who he would like to come in and who he doesn't want to come in. He doesn't control the actual sale or purchase of a player. He doesn't that's not his job. And for us not to be able to get Maguire out is a disaster for me. I understand he wants to stay for the money. That's on him. It is money, because if everybody's fit, he doesn't play. We will put Luke Shaw. If Malacia is fit and we need someone to play left centre back, Luke Shaw goes in before him. And
I was going to say to you, actually, like even at the Tottenham game, say Lisandro Martinez, I don't know what Lisandro's status is for the weekend, but obviously he's been a doubt all week. If he's not fit for that game, it should be the case for Harry Maguire to be like ready to go into that game. I don't see that there's a chance of Harry Maguire playing against Tottenham at the weekend. And I think you would look at Lindelof or even potentially Luke Shaw to go in there. I mean, at what point do you think Harry Maguire would actually get into the Man United team?
I got called out by a lot of people yesterday because I tweeted and saying that I think he's being greedy and I think it's a weak mentality. And I'm purely putting it down to he's staying for the extra 90 grand a week. And it's a weak mentality as a sportsman because you're not going to play. Oh, how do you not think he's going to play? He started 8 league games last year, and 2 of them were the opening 2 matches where he was given a chance. Yes, he might play some League Cup games for us, something along those lines. That's probably where he'll get utilised. But Lisandro and Varane, Lindelof are all ahead of him. We know that Luke Shaw gets moved in ahead of him, so he's 5th choice. Plus, if we do end up signing Pavard, he becomes 6th choice. He's not going to play football. So for him to stay for that extra, I understand he wants the money. I understand that. And he's entitled to. He isn't wrong to. But he is putting that extra bit of money ahead of his career. And what I hope happens if he stays for just the money is I hope he doesn't play for England, because that would then serve him right. I know a lot of people are moving to Saudi. For a lot of them, it's, wow, look at the money I can earn. But at least they're still playing football there. At least they're starting in their teams. I think to stay at a club where you're not wanted, where you're not being outed by the manager. Fans are booing you week in, week out. Fans are booing you because we feel like you are holding us up. You are holding the club up. And look, he's got a contract and he's entitled to do it, but it's massively frustrating. And I get why Ten Hag feels the way he does. But again, this is what happens when you're run by the Glazers. This stuff always ends up happening. We can start a transfer window well, or it gets to a point where it looks like it's going to be good. And then the house of cards falls down all the time with these individuals, whether it's the sale of people, whether it's getting purchases over the line. There's always something that kind of goes wrong. We can't ever just end the summer and go, yeah, you know what? That started okay, got better, ended brilliantly. We're ready for the beginning of the season. So, it looks like the manager's going to end up in a situation again where he has to chop and change and beg and borrow. And, if we end up again, we might sign a new striker, but we can't be signing Weghorst level. It needs to be quality. And we can't do that without selling people. And our board, who the Glazers hire, are struggling to sell people, and that's their job, and they're not doing it, and they're hanging the manager out to dry. It's very infuriating, mate. It really is. I'm as angry as Ten Hag, really.
I think that the game that they've got at the weekend could be exposing as well. I mean, the style of football that Tottenham play. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what midfield setup Ten Hag goes with, because I feel like if he was to try the Casemiro Mount Fernandes thing again, I just feel like Tottenham could bypass them. I don't know that Mount can actually. I'd be tempted to bring Eriksen back in and just try and get more control on the game, especially in the first half, because I think there'd be a massive risk here, especially if Lisandro Martinez isn't playing, of just falling behind early in this game. If they were to lose by a couple of goals to Tottenham, suddenly you are actually looking at a disastrous start of the season, a transfer window that hasn't been good enough, and then you're being reactive again in the market and making emotional buys, emotional transfers, and having a manager that is even angrier.
You're right. And 2 games after that, we're away at Arsenal. So, we've started the season off better than last year points-wise. We have 3 points now. We had none. It'd be very nice to get through this weekend with a win. Potentially a draw, because, Spurs look pretty good the other day against Brentford, but they're still finding their feet. Yeah. We should be further along in our process than them. So I expect us to go there and give them a game. But I think it might be Mctominay that starts in the midfield. If we don't buy anybody else, we're not going to get anybody in new by then. Amrabat's not going to be signed and ready to play for us by 5:30 on Saturday. Unless the deal gets complete today and he gets registered by tomorrow. So it might be Mctominay for a bit of extra steel in the middle. But viewers, let us know what you think. What else do you think Manchester United need to do? Get your comments in now. Make sure like buttons are being smashed for us also. Let's get this past 1,000 likes while we are live on the air. Got some super chats here. Arsenal Fever says Liverpool is Endo, Deadpool FC in the mud. He's not a very fan. Terry, are Liverpool a has-been club? No, they're not a has-been. They're not a has-been club. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't personally say that. I think that Liverpool, we know how big they are. Their owners have just, between them and Klopp over the last few years, they just failed to invest correctly, and they're in a bit of trouble now. But they're not a has-been club. Endo, the Superman from Japan, great utility signing. Hope Liverpool sign Florento Luis and Amrabat goes to Man United. Thank you very much for that super bat. Florentino Luis, I don't know too much about him personally. I don't, but I'll take your word for it there. Is it pronounced Soren? Let us know how you pronounce your name, because I'm terrible at reading, being dyslexic, and that's got an O in it, which I don't. It's like I assume you're from Denmark. But that's
or something like that, I imagine.
It's probably said, I probably butchered it. Sorry, mate. Terry, will Klopp quit if he doesn't get backed? Not this summer, but he could quit this season. Terry, are Everton bigger than Liverpool now? No. Come on now. Newcastle is a plastic club, just like City and Chelsea. Oh, you're on one today.
He's really on one, this guy, isn't he? Yeah, he's throwing money around just to get these hot takes out there.
I know, he is. Speaking of Newcastle and Chelsea, the big news this morning is that a £28 million deal has been agreed for Lewis Hall to leave Chelsea, join Newcastle. Is that you look a little bit shocked by that?
I mean, it's a lot of money, isn't it? It's quite impressive from Chelsea, to be fair. And what I was surprised at too is that Newcastle were going there. I mean, Newcastle were offered other deals in kind of this ballpark. If you think when they were looking at Kieran Tierney, they were kind of put off by, I think it was 30 million, might have been 35, but whatever it wasn't too far in distance from this. So to spend a similar amount of money on a player that is not as established does seem pretty interesting. I mean, Newcastle are starting to show their power now in the market. I mean, making a signing like this at £28 million is quite a big deal. It won't make the headlines that it should do, because £28 million doesn't seem a lot in comparison to some of the ridiculous deals that we're seeing elsewhere. But yeah, this is a player that I thought would have a future at Chelsea actually not long ago. But obviously at the moment, they are trying to balance the books a bit and sort out the financial fair play. And they're setting pretty big price tags for those players that are of this type. So obviously we're seeing at the moment the chances of Chalobah and Gallagher also going out the door, and it's going to help them massively in terms of clearing up any threat down the line of penalties that could be coming their way. But that's a great piece of business, I think, probably for everyone involved. For Hall, I think it's a genuine chance of establishing himself at a Premier League team. It's a very good fit with Eddie Howe and the way that he's trying to build this team. So far, Eddie Howe has managed to steer clear of like the marquee names that, you know, Piff, obviously, like they want at some point someone huge to come into the club to raise the global profile and also, in their eyes, take the team to the next level even quicker. But he doesn't want a Neymar type or anything like that. And if you look at the signings they've made this summer, it's been perfect for what he's trying to do. They spent big money without being extortionate fees. But yeah, it's quite a surprising one at that figure.
Yeah, and it's 28 million plus 7 million in what they call achievable add-ons. So that's based on appearances, which is interesting because it will probably take it over the next year or so to 35 million. And this is the thing with Chelsea. They keep being called out for FFP and all these types of issues. And for me personally, I feel as though that's people clutching at straws to try and. They're doing things so differently, Chelsea. The way they're operating, they're spending a lot up front, and they're looking to supposedly reduce their spending in years to come as these young players emerge. But that's 28 base, rising to 35 million for Hall. You've also got a situation where you're looking at Conor Gallagher might raise 35 to 40 million. You've got Chalobah that's going to raise 25 odd million. There's talk that they're going to raise at least an extra 100 million before the end of this transfer window. And when you actually look at their kind of actual spend, because a lot of their new transfers are amortized, their actual spend, they're actually going to probably be in a profit of between 80 to 100 million over the first two summers at the football club. So from an FFP point of view, they're in a good position. I think Hall, I really rate him. Whenever I've watched him play last season when Chelsea were awful and struggling, when he played, I was really impressed. I thought he was really good. But equally, they've got 2 or 3 players already in that position. Plus, what I've read, and this Chelsea fans can correct me if I'm wrong, is that he wants to play in midfield. And Chelsea are like, no, we see you as a left back. So I think there's an element of they're not quite on the same wavelength. But I think it's a phenomenal signing. I think he's so technically talented. I think this is a phenomenal piece of business for Newcastle United. And I think you're right. They have improved their squad. There was a lot of talk that Tonali wouldn't be good enough. Now, look, he's played one game, and I know to never go over the top. But in his first game, he looked like a Premier League player.
He was like one of the best debuts I've ever seen. Yeah, it was all action, wasn't it?
Phenomenal he was. And they're just, Newcastle, in my opinion, they're just kind of doing it the right way. They really are. And they should be a worry to rivals, as it were, because they're looking to do bits. They really are looking to do bits.
I think there'll be a centre-back coming still as well. I mean, I've been told all summer, like, just watch out. They were trying to figure out what level that would be at. Would they get a centre-back that's like 10 to 15 million as someone that was kind of emerging and a bit off radar of the big clubs, or would they go higher than that and compete for some of these guys that are being linked all the time with the likes of Man United and Arsenal and Chelsea? So it'd be interesting to see what they do right at the end, but they've certainly gone above what the brief was for them to spend this summer. I always expected them to try and to look towards that 200 million level, but I think the briefings out the club at the beginning were a lot lower than that, but we're starting to see them push on now.
George here says, you see the Newcastle fear coming. The thing is with when I talk about the fear, It's when you see the way they play, the direction they're moving in, and the fact that they have owners with unlimited money from a footballing standpoint, and they're growing, and they are listen, the youngsters won't remember this. You will, though, Dean, same as me. In the 90s, when they come from the Championship to the Prem and were challenging Man United, there was Newcastle shirts everywhere. They were a club with a brand of football that sold. There's a lot of men my age, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger, in and around 37, between about 43 and about 32 in London that support Newcastle. Loads of them, because they fell in love with the club in the 90s. And that will happen again if they play this brand of football and they move forward, because it's such a Newcastle as a city and as a football club. It is, I understand, it's very sort of hypnotic and very addictive, because it's got such passion and enthusiasm, and it's like Liverpool, it's like Man United, it's like Arsenal. Brilliant clubs to support for so many reasons. The only thing they haven't had in recent years is trophies, and I'll tell you now, they win a trophy, you're never going to see a party like it. It will blow people's minds, and that's when they'll go to the next level. So I think Hall is making a good decision for himself. Look, leaving Chelsea is a big decision for any player, because Chelsea are Chelsea, and they've become one of the most powerful clubs in the world. In terms of Chelsea, we know they're looking at Olise now. That deal looks like it's going to happen. What have you made of the Olise bit of business and the work they've done in the last few weeks in terms of bringing in Lavia, Caicedo? Do you think they've done enough to really push on this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, they had to do this. There was a gap in that midfield that was just going to expose Chelsea all season long. And I was coming into this, I found it really hard to do a season prediction on Chelsea, because I was like, I don't know, because I don't believe that what I'm looking at 2 weeks ago, say, is what I'm going to be looking at by the end of August. And already you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so the team they already had, but with Caicedo and Lavia in a midfield three with Enzo Fernandez, is just forget everything else you thought before, because this is different. Like, this is a totally different Chelsea. The expectations now should be that Chelsea are challenging for the title. You cannot spend that much money on two central midfielders like that, on top of all the other money you've spent. You're close to £1 billion now, and you're buying two of the players that will be considered to be the best in their position in the league. They should be challenging for the title. I know that Chelsea fans will say, well, no, we haven't had time to fit the team together and stuff yet. We need time to build. I'll take that. But in terms of spending, your expectations should be absolutely through the roof. Mine are. I'm expecting Chelsea to compete. Yeah, go close to Man City. Why not? Why should Chelsea not be expected to do what Arsenal did last season? If you look at the Chelsea team now, apart from the fact that we're not convinced yet of their goal scoring pedigree, we'll have to see how that weighs out. But they're as good as Arsenal, if not better than Arsenal. I'd say that Chelsea's current midfield is now better than Arsenal's current midfield. That's how I would view the changes that they've made. Plus, bringing in Olise, that's icing on the cake if and when they get it done. I have to say, mate, I do have sympathy for Crystal Palace. I mean, I can't really talk about the whole tapping up thing in too much detail, because I'm not sure how legally safe it would be to repeat exactly what I've heard actually happened. But I saw a lot of people talking online about, well, everyone gets tapped up these days. Everyone agrees personal terms. I spoke to someone who's got a really good inside line on this, and I got the version of events that he has on what this was. And if it is true that this is what happened, then I have complete sympathy of Crystal Palace. And I'm like, that kind of is tapping up. And if that's the case, then Crystal Palace should be defending themselves. It's so hard for clubs of that size anyway to compete in the Premier League, to compete in the transfer market, and to fight to hold on to their players, that if they are also being tapped up beyond what we normally see with players just agreeing personal terms with agents, then they have to fight for the right to have some legal safe sounding around that, because they're not going to survive if their players are allowed to be caught in that way. Now, I do wonder what the eventual price would be. I mean, if I was Chelsea right now, and I mean, look, Chelsea seem quite ballsy about this, as they always are. They feel that there's absolutely no wrongdoing, and fine. I do wonder if they're just we've really, really rattled and upset them here. How about we give them a few million on top of this deal, just to appease things a little bit? It'll be interesting to see the way that actually ends up coming about. But I have to say, mate, I've been a critic really of the way that Chelsea blew up a Champions League winning team for no apparent reason. Like it seemed over the top to me. But you look at it now, they came in, they were like, look, we're worried about the age of this team. We're worried about some of the profile and the mannerisms of this team. Let's start again. And they've done it. And now you look at their team and you're like,
yeah.
For the next 5 to 6, 7 years, they might not have to spend much money if this pays off.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If it doesn't work, another conversation happens. But if 80% of these, and what I keep talking about, is what they've done that's so good is even a lot of these young ones that they've done 10 millions on, 15 millions on, 20 millions on, even if they don't make it, they're probably going to sell them at a profit. They're probably going to sell them at a profit and make a lot of money back. And I think, look, it's going to be hard for anyone else to do what they've done because of the new legislations coming in over how long you can amortize the payments, as an example.
Yeah,
they may have just done something where they have fast-tracked a way of building a squad, as an example, in a short amount of time. Some super chats here. It says, this narrative that Chelsea should challenge is so tiring. Arteta had 3 years before even coming close. Coaching, just not spending, takes time, is what Zachary Stone says here.
I mean, so what are Chelsea fans happy? I should be happy with seeing Chelsea spend £1 billion over the course of a year and just saying, yeah, but all we want right now is to like get into the top 6 and challenge for the top 4 again. I can't have it. Like, I can't have that could be the case. If you're spending alone more than most leagues are spending across like all 20 clubs, then I don't see an argument whereby you can't be competing to win the league. Like, Inter Miami signed Messi. Should we not expect that Inter Miami should suddenly be competing to win MLS because it's only one player and they might need time to coach? Like, Chelsea are buying the best players that are available to them in that position. You're going from a midfield that was going to have Conor Gallagher in it, a young Andre Santos playing in it, suddenly saying, oh, forget that, we'll have Caicedo and Lavia in there instead. It's incomparable. It's incomparable. And suddenly that defense is so better protected that you're no longer worried about that, even though that base itself is looking a lot stronger now. I'm sorry, but Chelsea should be in the title chase as far as I'm concerned.
On paper, they might look like they have a better midfield than Arsenal, but there's so much work to do.
Yeah, of course. And that's true. Like, of course, like I'm obviously being a little bit extreme here. Like, the team will need time to gel. I don't expect like Lavia and Caicedo to never make a mistake between them. They haven't met yet. They haven't met. But and Arsenal should have a cohesion that stands them in good stead before now. But you look at Arsenal's team at the weekend and the way that Partey, that role that he played and they had to give up on, the fact that Timber has come into the team, big plans for him, suddenly he's injured. Gabby Jesus isn't there, so they're not sure who's going to be scoring the goals. And Ketty has done it week 1. Will that continue? Balogun's going out the door. Where's Kai Havertz even playing? There's still a lot of things for Arsenal to sort out too. And the way that they were playing last season, teams will have watched back all the tape across that, found ways to combat certain areas of play. And Arteta's got to come up with new plan B and plan C. And then the first day of the season, they've just about got over the line in a fixture that most were predicting to be a 4 or 5-0 home win. So, yeah, I don't really think there'll be a lot between Chelsea and Arsenal this season.
Interesting. Their viewers, let us know what you think in the comment sections below. Please keep it in like buttons for us too. Kevin here says, Mudryk shunned Arsenal. Come on, Terry, you're better than that. Kevin, I know I tweeted this yesterday. You know my stance on these things, and we've seen it. The Lavia case is, for me, you could call it confirmation bias, but for me, it's a case in point. If Mykhailo Mudryk only wanted Arsenal, like 100% only wanted Arsenal, Chelsea's bid would have been insignificant. Liverpool bid more money for Lavia than Chelsea did. But he's gone Chelsea because he'd said, I'm not going Liverpool. So it doesn't matter about Southampton accepting the bid because he's no longer wanted to go there. End of the day, this is what happens. So, in my opinion, when you chase a player and then he joins another club, Dina say this, I know what the briefings come out and say, but I said that. But the briefing around Man United when it comes to Gakpo and Nunez was that we walked away. We knew what my stance was. We got rejected. So at least I have, Kevin, the same energy for my own club. I don't just do it to others. That's the way I think it works, in my personal opinion. Clubs don't brief it that way. Agents don't brief it that way. But I think we can all read between the lines and we understand what it looks like. It's like when people like my favorite one is, oh, no official bid was ever put in. Well, what's an unofficial? There's no such thing as an unofficial bid, in my opinion. You either bid or you don't bid. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy to me. Michael here says, I don't want to hear no excuses from you, Chelsea not winning the league by January after spending £1 billion. Is what Michael Ramsey's got to say.
He's going to step further than me, saying by January. Yeah,
by January. Arsenal Fever's still giving it today. He says, I hate Chelsea. He's not
$2 to get that out there.
He said this as well, Terry. When are Man United going to stop paying refs? Well, it did look like we paid a ref on Monday. I'm telling you,
that was I have to say that was genuinely unbelievable. Like, I cannot believe that they got away with that decision. It was funny because I was watching that game with the sound off and I was doing some work. So I'm like keeping an eye on it and I've got the laptop on and I can see like my WhatsApp pinging and stuff and people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I've just been having a conversation with a chat of like how good this fan had felt about the fact that Onana was in goal now ahead of De Gea. Such a calm presence, so sure of what he's doing. Literally 1 minute later, it absolutely clatters him. And I'm just like, oh my God. And so I look up and I'm like, oh, it's a penalty. So I'll look back in a second to see. And I'm like looking up and I'm like, what are they even debating? Like, how was this? I couldn't believe it.
We caught life 100%. But you know what I would say in defense of Man United and paying refs? We had the one thing that frustrates me is that even yesterday, 2 days later, there was still talk on Sky Sports about it. Brand new, fresh debates. Yeah. Man United had 2 or 3 horrendous decisions go against us last year where we didn't get penalties. And there was barely any conversation about it at all. Yeah. Equally, Dermot Gallagher came out Tuesday morning and said, Stonewall penalty, it's a disgrace. But Man United fans become Sherlock Holmes. They found footage of him about a year ago when, ironically, the Wolves goalkeeper did exactly the same thing. And Dermot Gallagher said, this is just a coming together of players, different kind of rules for goalkeepers, so I wouldn't give it. That's the only thing I would say. It is a penalty, but there is definitely a different energy when big clubs, not just United, but when big clubs get them in their favour versus smaller clubs and people show their bums. But we haven't been paying refs. It's just a bad decision. Yet McSauce isn't worth 40 million. Make it make sense. Look, Mctominay is worth 40 million in this market.
Definitely.
There's no doubt in my mind. He is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how many Premier League games he's got under his belt, where he's been getting those games, and you look at some of the other deals being done right now. Like, we just seen Lewis Hall going to Newcastle for £30 million. Like, how is Scott McTominay not worth £10 million more than him?
Yeah, and exactly, especially in the right team. And so I think for a West Ham, Scott McTominay will do will play.
I think it'll be a good signing.
He'll look better. It's just removal of the pressure. I don't think people sometimes realize the pressure of playing for some of our giant clubs compared to playing for, even with Maguire. This is why I think he's so silly. He'll go to West Ham, and no matter how many mistakes he makes, and we know more compilations online, no one will care. And that removal of that pressure will just make him a better footballer. On Chelsea here, sorry, mate, go on. Sorry, mate, go on.
No, I was going to say, I'd always said at the start of the summer, I was like, I'd kind of take Harry Maguire at Fulham because you'd be getting a totally different person and a totally different player. And in that sort of atmosphere, whereby a club like Fulham, where there's not the vitriol and the hate and the kind of global profiling, he'd get back to his best, no problems at all. And suddenly, you look at like Chris Smalling or something like that. As soon as they go off radar and like can recollect themselves and become the person they actually are, it's like a reset.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Modest here, Chelsea fan says, "Is it true that Hakim Ziyech has failed his medical again?"
I don't know. I mean, that's that is not one that I've been on top of today. I mean, I hope not, because that would be a disaster. I mean, yesterday was the last I saw was that like it was all fine and he was going to be okay to go to Galatasaray. So I can't remember. There was sure on Twitter yesterday there was a theme, wasn't there? That was an account that put out that he had failed, and I think it was misproven.
Yeah,
so if that's still that,
the last I read is that he's passed his first part of his medical.
I haven't heard any problem with it beyond that tweet, which I think was from an account that wasn't trustable.
You would have thought when he failed his first medical that the first thing Chelsea would do is get him back, look at the problem and get it fixed, and then send it. You think Chelsea wouldn't be silly enough to just let him off to his own devices for 3 or 4 weeks. Just
like your car failing 2 MOTs or 3 MOTs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you put your car in for an MOT, it's foul because you've got bald tires, and you put it into another garage 3 weeks later without changing the tires. I can't imagine. Again, sometimes it's about logic. I can't, unless they've discovered something new, I can't imagine Chelsea allowing that to happen. It doesn't make sense to me personally.
No.
In terms of Chelsea, goalkeepers, strikers, should they expect anything more in this summer as far as you're hearing? Because yesterday we've heard about Costa in goal. We've heard about maybe Ollie Watkins up front. There was a rumor going around yesterday about that. Are you hearing any more incomings to Chelsea this summer?
I mean, I'm not sure if it will be this summer. I think that's the thing. I mean, I was speaking to a Chelsea contact yesterday, and they always refuse to rule out the idea of signing anyone, Chelsea, particularly a striker, because it's obviously a massive issue that's been there for them not scoring goals. But the message he had was more like, this is one where we can put our foot on the ball until January. Like, why? There doesn't really seem a need to rush. I mean, Nkunku has rattled them a little bit, that injury. So that is one reason I'm still like wondering if they do go and sign a forward. But the January market will be there. Nicholas Jackson, they really want to give a good chance to establish himself in England, and the pre-season signs were good. We'll have to wait and see what sort of composure he's got in front of goal and whether he can take his chances. If he's not doing it by January, then Chelsea can go out in the market then and make a splash. By then, someone like Ivan Toney's back available again. Like there's always the potential for something like that to come back onto the scene. So I think that's feasible. And yeah, I think the goalkeeper option is still open. I think that Chelsea have a decision to make on that one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me because, again, Jackson looks really sharp, really good, finds space well. We saw him miss like a really good chance. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't score the next time that he plays. I always feel when you sign a new striker or an attacker, them scoring early in their career, you know, if this weekend he bags a brace and settles, he could just, as you said, keep going on. But if he goes 2, 3, 4, 5 games without scoring, it becomes, you know, a heavy weight, if that makes sense, a big elephant in the room, as it were. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. A lot of Chelsea fans kind of want to wait and get Toney in January. That's what a lot of them are talking about. And again, listen, Ollie Watkins is good, but if someone said to me now, United can sign Ollie Watkins now or wait till January to get Toney, I would wait until January because you don't have to have everything now. I know we're in the world of instant gratification, but sometimes just wait a little bit because Ivan Toney is, again, if he weren't suspended, he'd 100% be gone this summer. I think somebody would be snapping him up because
Chelsea would have, I think. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we'll get a good gauge on it on whether Brozier ends up being able to actually talk to other clubs or not. I think because that's going to be the one that makes way. I mean, right now you're looking at it with Nicholas Jackson and thinking, okay, Brozier's the main backup, main alternate option there. Still don't get the impression that Chelsea are totally trusting in that. West Ham obviously had an eye on Brozier for a while. Fulham being like having tentative steps around looking at the Brozier perspective. So if he was actually allowed to speak to other clubs, then it opens the door and you're thinking, okay, they're definitely looking at bringing another forward in.
That makes a lot of sense. We're going to come back to Chelsea a little bit later, so stay with us, viewers. Keep hitting like and share buttons. Just on back to Liverpool slightly here. What's your understanding of their kind of pursuit of Doucoure and getting him in? We've mentioned obviously Amrabat and Gravenberch, but this seems to be someone that they really want as well. I know you have a lot of connections around the London clubs. Is that one that you would expect to see complete or happen?
Oh, mate, Crystal Palace are just desperate for this not to happen. Obviously, like they tried to put this like 70 to 80 million pound valuation on him in a bid to just make sure that he was going nowhere. Fulham did exactly the same with Palhinha when clubs were sniffing around him. And obviously now, because of all these deals, which Chelsea started with Enzo Fernandez and has been followed up with Declan Rice and stuff, of midfield players going for expansive amounts of money, Palace were like, well, let's just put a massive ceiling on this and see what we can get. So they absolutely can't contemplate Doucoure going, Olise going. Eze is being talked about as well, obviously. Tottenham have been linked with Eze. Like it's all just incomprehensible, really, for Roy Hodgson to have his team blitzed like this, especially on the back of a summer when Wilf Zaha has left. So,
yeah, true.
They're really, really desperate to keep him. But if Liverpool front up the cash and we know that they've got it, then it'll end up going. That's the truth to it. The midfield they've bought is only 20 million. We know that they've gone and spent or offered 110 for Caicedo, so they've got the 80 million there. And so Crystal Palace are going to be like, if you want him, then go and give us silly money. It'll be interesting to see whether it's able to progress and whether Liverpool are really ready to front that much cash for a Crystal Palace centre midfielder, because there's no doubt you're paying, over the odds, but that's the situation they've kind of put themselves in by failing to deliver the Lavia money when they should have just done it earlier in the window.
Yeah, you often can create your own problems, as we spoke about United doing a little bit earlier as well. Another update's just come out actually from Fabrizio about Benjamin Pavard. They said it's one to watch. He's like pushing to leave Bayern. Man United stalling because of Maguire. He says could become an option for Arsenal to replace Timber, but no decision yet. In Milan have him on their list as well. In terms of Pavard coming to the Premier League, do you see that being one that Arsenal, Man United will still push for later in this window?
Yeah, I mean, Man United obviously is hard right now, whereas Arsenal, it's not as difficult. They're looking to get a couple of people out right now. If you think Tavares, he's likely to go. I think Nottingham Forest in for him right now. There's talk around Tomiyasu, and obviously the fact that Timbers are injured immediately means that they've got a problem. Now, if you think João Cancelo has been a player that has been on their radar since before the summer. They love shopping at Man City, so that's always been an option. He's quite far down the road with the Barcelona deal. That's not tied up, though. Like, that is not complete. So if anyone else was to come into that conversation, then it would be Arsenal. I think Cancelo to Arsenal would be a fantastic move. So I couldn't completely rule that out, despite the fact that he is a long way down the road to joining Barcelona. And if not, then Pavard seems like a very, very sensible option for Arsenal to go and look at. I mean, again, it would surely rattle Man United if that was to happen and they miss out on another guy that they should have through the door right now. I think this week should have been a week where United are announcing Amrabat and Pavard if the outgoings would have worked to their favour. If that now completely goes in the other direction and they end up joining Liverpool and Arsenal respectively, then Man United are in the mud.
We absolutely are, and I'm fearful of it. And I think that Man United fans might have brought this on ourselves by laughing at Liverpool. The football gods, they watch, they listen, and they go, right, you're laughing, we're going to sort you out. Have some humility. But yeah, it could be a painful one, especially again if Arsenal go and take Pavard. I think it all depends with Arsenal in terms of the severity, because there's differing reports about Jurriën Timber. There was talk yesterday of 7 months. There's a report this morning on Sky that it's only a slight tear in the ACL and no other part of the knee is damaged. They've got to have the surgery on it. But if it's only a slight tear and no damage elsewhere, that's not a 7-8 month season-long ending injury anymore. The technology and the medicine now around ACL injuries is so much better than it was. I mean, it used to be an 18-month injury, like 10, 12 years ago, 18-month, or even a career ender. But I was listening to a podcast the other day with an MMA fighter, with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how now, even when you completely rupture it and ruin it, they're able to do this stuff now where within, like, the guy was saying, I had mine done, and within 4 months, I was back to full training. 4 months. I'm thinking to myself, so there's lots of options there. But I suppose they've got to have the operation first for Timber, then assess, because
I still think it's going to be 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is. But I suppose they've got to check and go, if we bring in Pavard and then he's back in 5-6 months, then what happens? You don't want an overcrowded squad. But again, they could pull this off, Arsenal. There's no doubt. In terms of the sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say they were linked with Simakan as well, obviously coming into the summer. So that's one that probably holds half decent value as well. So just one to keep an eye on too, and not forget, because these same names keep cropping up across the course of the summer, and none of them have moved. But Simakan is one of those.
In terms of Arsenal's attacking options, so they've been continuously linked to potentially bringing in another forward. Mohamed Kudus has been a name that they haven't progressed it beyond initial contacts. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago now, it was kind of announced that Brighton had an agreement with Ajax, but that hasn't progressed at all. Then there was talk of West Ham coming in. That hasn't progressed at all. Is this a case of Kudus waiting on a team like Arsenal to maybe push the go button? Or Arsenal just not looking at any other kind of attacking players to come in as far as you're aware?
So there was always this narrative at the start of the window, and I was trying to figure out, obviously, what Arsenal were doing beyond the stuff that everybody knew was happening. And we all like to talk about attacking players. And I was like, what's the possibilities of this happening? And it was always said to me, at the back end of the transfer window, if the outgoings have gone well and the outlay on players has gone in our favour, then there's definitely potential to bring in another forward. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, okay, well, the outlays have gone pretty reasonably. I mean, they knew what they were going to be spending on Declan Rice. The fact that they've just saved that cash on David Raya works in their favour. So they've still got money in the pot. The outgoings, there's still some work to be done, but it looks like a lot is about to happen. So I think the next week of outgoings will determine exactly what Arsenal can do. But there's the fullback problem. There's a defensive midfielder that they still talk about being a potential problem in terms of depth. So let's see whether they end up doing anything there. And then I think a lot will depend on what happens with Balogun. I mean, they want to get him out the door, but we don't know exactly what the terms are going to be around that deal at the moment. I mean, he's been talked about as a £50 million player, £50 million transfer. I think Tottenham were even linked the other day. A few other Premier League clubs have been linked too. But yeah, they need an offer, a big offer to arrive for Balogun. And that's the sort of deal that could trigger something else exciting for Arsenal in this transfer window. Whether it's Kudus or not, I'm not so sure. I mean, West Ham, I think, are quite frustrated with the fact that he hasn't come through yet. I did text someone on this before we came on, so I'm just checking to see if he's written back on it. Doesn't look like he has. But they've been waiting for an answer on Kudus for quite some time. They're still reasonably confident. I think that the problem is Kudus knows it, like he's known all summer that like he had big potential in this transfer market, and at one point was obviously linked with Man United. So he's got aspirations to get like top end Premier League, and it would make sense for him to kind of sit that out at the moment. I know West Ham still funny looking into Jesse Lingard as an option for this summer. So Jesse Lingard might yet be back in the fold at West Ham, which is one to look out for.
I've sort of seen that. I've seen those kind of links and everything else, and I've seen a lot of big West Ham. Yeah, I've seen him sharing what he said to Steve Bartlett, the podcaster, about how West Ham showed him no love, and all the West Ham fans say, "No, we showed you love. You just wanted more money than we were willing to offer you. So do one." Football fans are like that, but look, I thought it was a big mistake for him last year not joining West Ham and joining. The irony is they might have offered you an extra $100,000 a week, but it was a 1-year contract. Where West Ham were probably offering you a 4 or 5 year contract. So over the course of that contract, you'd have potentially earned more money.
It was a bad year for him, yeah.
I thought we might have ended up in somewhere like Saudi, because he seems. I mean, he'd kill it at the level there. He would kill it. He'd probably earn 400,000 or 500,000 a week tax free, but it depends on what he wants. Like, I still feel like I get the feeling with Lingard. There's something about him he wants to prove himself. Still, I still feel that if you were to get him to be honest, I think he feels I'm better than I've shown, and when I went to West Ham, I was able to show everybody my absolute top quality. And then again, the following season, Man United were wrong. We should have let him go. We should never have kept him. We should have, again, that's why we're such a stupid club. We literally could have got about 25, 30 million pounds, maybe more for him after that loan spell. And then we kept him, he left for nothing. That's how stupid, that's dumb my club are when it comes to exits. You actually loan someone out, and they do, even with, how the hell we haven't got decent money for Henderson already when he's had 2 brilliant loan spells away from the club, and we haven't gone and got in this market 30 odd million for him. It's mind-boggling.
He's one Onana injury away from being your number 1 keeper, so you might have him in the sticks soon.
Mate, this is true. But I just look at the amount of money we don't raise through selling players, because it's almost like we hold on a little bit too long to see if we can get even better, and we end up blowing our load here. There's an update here from someone that says Inter Milan are set to submit an offer for Bayern Munich's Benjamin Pavard, who remains Man United's priority target in case Harry Maguire's departure. Again, this is where the club needs to be mindful here. And I know we don't like to overspend money, but this shows you the ambition of the board. Because if you're going to lose your number 1 target before you sell someone, then there's egg on your face, because you've got to go and buy him. He's not even that expensive. You've got to go and buy him. And I think we've got to turn around, because I still think the Maguire situation with West Ham can be revived. If you turn around and say to the player, we'll pay you that and this is the stupid part about it. It's only going to cost 90 grand a week. What's that? So that's just under 5 million quid. I think it works out about 7 million to pay him off. 7 million to pay Maguire off is money well spent to have him and his toxicity out of the football club. Then you get Pavard, you improve that area, you remove someone that the manager doesn't want, you remove someone that could become divisive, remove someone that leaks information, remove someone who's been a problem at the football club. It's ridiculous not to. And then imagine you lose your number one target and you keep someone that you don't want. Honestly, when you say it out loud, it does not make any sense whatsoever. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is true.
Terry, how did Rasmus Højlund pass his medical check with a back injury? Well, because you can be there's an injury and if they'd have checked it and gone, this is chronic, and in the next 3 years he's not gonna be able to walk, they wouldn't have signed him. But it's not even as bad as people are saying. He's already training on grass. It's about fitness levels. So whenever you see a footballer training on grass in boots, they're not that far away from returning, and there's no signs that he's got long-term issues or anything like that. So yeah, I wouldn't. Personally, I'm not too worried or concerned. We have a super chat here from Per, who says, Arsenal fans telling Chelsea fans to demand trophies. They better keep that same energy for our club this season. Major trophy or bust. Do you feel that about Arsenal as well? Because, you know, they'll be going up. They'll be going into their fifth year of Arteta this year. He'll complete 4 years and be 4.5 years into his job by the end of the season. Okay. Spent 700 million themselves. Do you think it's right that Arsenal fans are now demanding big major trophies as a return on that investment in Arteta?
I mean, yeah, I hadn't really thought of it from this point of major trophy or bust, but I mean, I guess you probably should have those demands on them. The problem, I would say, is that every club is now having these same expectations. So suddenly for this season, Man City expect trophies without doubt. Chelsea should, without doubt, expect to win a trophy. Arsenal should expect to win a trophy. Newcastle are getting to the stage where they're going to expect a trophy. And then you've got clubs like Liverpool, Man United, Tottenham. Well, no, I'll leave Tottenham out of it for now. Man United, Liverpool, who certainly want to be in that conversation. Like, they can't all win trophies, so someone's always going to fall short. And look, Arsenal, I think it was good for them to get their hands on the Community Shield, no doubt about it. But it's a different type of final. It's a different pressure. And it'll be really interesting to see how their mentality shapes up over the course of this season to properly compete when it matters. That's what I would say is still slightly lacking from Arsenal. Like, for everything they gave last season, they still fell short. And yes, they've added something different to them over the course of this summer. But Kai Havertz and Declan Rice and Jurrien Timber, they're still not like completely convincing of having the mindset to go and win, you know, trophy after trophy, season after season. But they need the first one. I'll be going all out for like the Carabao Cup or something if I was Arsenal, just to make sure you got something under your belt.
Yeah, listen, I think they have to demand. I don't agree with the notion of major trophy or bust as a blanket statement. You have to contextualize. Now, if Arsenal miss out on the Premier League title by 1 point, but do better than last year in terms of goals, defensively, win more games, they get to a Champions League semi or a final and narrowly lose. You know, they pick up a League Cup as in that whole process, and the trajectory is still good. You don't sack the manager. However, they finish fourth, 25 points off the top, go out early in the Champions League and win nothing, then I think you look at that situation and maybe say, we've built a brilliant squad. Maybe we do need a better manager. So I think that you have to contextualize these things, and you have to look at the lay of the land. You know, maybe, and I'm touching any club I'm saying this for, I'm not trying to put this on Arsenal. You get 4 or 5 of your main players out with major injuries all season, which has happened to teams before. Again, you have to contextualize the situation. But as a general rule, I agree with Per that they now need to be challenging for the major trophies year in, year out with what they've spent, what they've invested, and the quality of the team they've got. The same as we expect from Liverpool, the same as people are now going to expect from Chelsea, Man United and City. I don't see Arsenal should never have a pass on that, because all the big teams, all the giant clubs around Europe that spend money have those expectations on them. And when you actually look at the fact that the Premier League has spent, in fact, Arsenal this summer, Man United will probably get there. City definitely. City will when they get Paqueta. Liverpool probably will in the end. and Arsenal have all spent more than the entire league in Spain. Spain have only spent 258 million euros on players so far this summer. All the big teams in England have pretty much in and around done that. So even when it comes to Europe, and you look at, I know Real Madrid have already got good players, Barca have got good players. With what our clubs can invest, we should be looking at ourselves and saying, well, we should not be getting beat by the vast majority of Europe, because their whole league can't even afford to spend what each of our clubs spend. So the expectation should be massively high on our clubs. There's no doubt about it. Even though the Real Madrids and Bayern Munichs are still got world-class players and are favourites, as a general rule, when you're outspending them year in, year out, you have to expect to, at some point, even overtake those teams. You can't sit behind them.
100%.
Nana here says top 3 and a trophy is the expectation. That's for Chelsea. I don't think that'd be that'd be a good first season, really, under Poch. You know, top 3, a trophy. If Poch can break that Premier League, that English duct of getting a trophy, I think that gets a massive monkey off his back as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Top 3. I'd say that's exactly the same expectation I would have at Arsenal. I mean, even to repeat what they did last season in the league, I think is going to be extremely difficult. So if they can come close to that and finish 2nd or 3rd and hunt down a trophy, then I think that's good for them too.
I agree. We shouldn't have wasted money on Mount. Look, I know how it feels that way. After that first game, did you see the stats that came out where it was zeros for everything? And
I felt sorry for him, man. I was like, don't troll him. Not yet. Give him a second. Give him a minute.
I feel like, look, he deserved criticism for me as a United fan. It maybe, barring Bebe, it's probably the worst Man United debut I've ever seen. Patrice Evra was pretty bad. One of them worked out really well. The other one went the other way. I'm hoping Mount is more Patrice Evra, but it was just when you needed him to perform and do some things, and it was just sort of, it would have, the day would have been compounded if Onana's penalty would have been given, because it would have been both new signings.
That's true.
It would have been awful, because you always want to start well.
But this is why you've got to kind of stick with him. I mean, one of the big problems he fell off a cliff at Chelsea was he was playing an assistant that didn't fit him and wasn't then given enough game time to find any form on the back of it. So Man United have to find both of these things. They have to find a position that suits Mount in this team, and they also have to give him the game time, but not at the detriment of the squad actually being able to live up to their full capabilities in the meantime. And in that first game, it definitely felt like the positioning of Mount wasn't helpful to Man United being able to get where they could be.
I hear you. Not going to lie, Chelsea looked very good versus Liverpool on Sunday. Arsenal fever with a nice super chat now. Yeah, they did. I think they grew into that game, and I think with a bit more experience, and if you'd have thrown Caicedo and Lavia into that midfield, they win. They win that match, and they win it. I think they'd have won it quite comfortably with those improvements. Equally, you throw, if Liverpool end up signing Amrabat, they've got Endo coming in and somebody else, that would have been different as well. Both teams you could see needed that defensive midfield player, because they just got run through a little too easy at times. So very, very interesting indeed. Breaking news, João Felix has terminated his contract.
Oh, that's interesting. Wonder if he'll get that Barcelona move now.
He very much could. Lee Gunner's in the mud though, because he said that if João Felix leaves Atletico, Simeone is so powerful and such a winner, he'll quit his job through losing one of his best players.
Oh, did he?
Weird take, Lee. That ain't happening.
I wouldn't have gone with that one. But that is a bold move by João. I'm pleased he's done that though. I am pleased he's done that. I thought João Felix did well at times for Chelsea. There was 2 or 3 games where he was by far the best player on the pitch when he was playing for Chelsea. It was just kind of like not the right moment to be in that team. If anyone suffers an injury in the next weekend, then João Felix should be an option if he doesn't already sign for Barcelona.
It's interesting. The Athletic has just reported now that Xavi does not want João Felix.
Well,
so
there you go then.
It's so interesting.
That's been obviously like all the focus has been around like, could Barcelona find a way to make that deal happen? How would it open up? Like, what would it mean for the player and the team? But
KJ here has just said that it's not confirmed yet. I was just going by what someone wrote, a different article someone put into the thing. Yeah, I don't know if he will. I mean, Atletico are saying he's got to pay to cancel it. He's got to pay a 350 million pound release clause. Like that is nonsense. Because from their point of view, they want that 70 odd million, but they don't want to keep paying his massive wages and then not play him. So it becomes. I always feel like with him. No one's gonna pay for him until this saga is resolved, because you're probably better off loaning him after the window ends and not paying. It saves you that 80 million pound. He's an interesting player. My biggest issue with him is his lack of output. But then again, if he goes to the right club that plays the right brand of football, and if he starts to add that into his game, the good thing for Felix is he's still relatively. He must be still in his early 20s. I could be wrong. 23. He's 23. Turns 24 this year. He's still got time to turn it around, but I don't know. It's going to be going to be interesting. Certainly is.
Yeah.
Dean, always a pleasure to speak football with you, mate.
Yes,
Viewers,
mate.
please hit the like button before you leave. Content this afternoon coming out, and remember the top 6 show will be on this evening at 6 p.m. In fact, what I'm going to do for you all is I'm going to set that stream up very quickly now, so you guys can go and like it and make sure you're ready for it to come out, because I'm sure there's going to be some big breaking news before that. I don't even know what to title it. I'm going to title it the top 6 show right now. I'm going to go and set that up. It'll help if I have cap locks off when I write this in, and I'm going to set that up for 6 p.m. this evening. I want to see you all there, though, people. Do you understand what I'm saying? I want to see you all back. What would be nice is if you all, I mean, I know we never go live on time. We're always a little bit late. I want to see you all there at 6 p.m. ready to go. This stream should take you through to it. If not, just click on our homepage. You'll see it up and ready for 6 p.m. Like it. Go there and like it now. Bookmark it ready to start at 6 p.m. Always a pleasure to speak to you, Dean. Viewers, until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again.